5. Acts 20:35. I have shown you in every way, by laboring like this, that you must support the weak and remember the words of the Lord Jesus, that he said, "It is more blessed to give than to receive."
All right. So before anyone else gets mad at me for being inappropriately attired to be up front, this is the shirt that we wore at the event. So everybody had, I'm going to tell you guys about the Pathway to Health Expo that happened in Indianapolis back in April. Rogues and I went out, drove out there, and all right, so we were in Lucas Oil Stadium, and I never did get that picture of it. It was a nice picture, big building. You could see how big it was, and then by the time I blew it up to fit on the screens, it would have been really pixelated and been really bad. That's not Lucas Oil Stadium. Oh, you guys can't see it. When that TV loses signal, it does all the pictures of the day from Bing or something. So I get to see nice scenery. You guys get the lost signal thing. But first pictures aren't that important, so I'm not too worried about it. I had a couple pictures of the floor plan, and it really doesn't do any justice to the sense of scale of it. This is a football field. This is where the Indiana Colts play, and they took over the entire stadium. They covered the field itself with plastic tiles that are highly conducive. Thank you, Cody. Highly conducive to generating static electricity. So everybody who had to work out there, they'd walk around and you'd walk, and then you'd accidentally walk by a metal pole and you'd get zapped. So that was always fun. But so this is, again, you can't really tell. This was the main floor, so this is street level. There are 3 main entrances to it. The south side was the dental check-in. On the east side was where medical patients would come in, and then vision, they had to walk around to the west side and come in that way. But there was only one parking lot where everybody who wanted service either walked up to or drove into. They had a triage area where they would do quick 15-minute COVID tests. They would ask people what they were there for. If they had dental had an online appointment system that they were test driving this time, and I don't think they're going to do that again. It's easier to just do walk-ins only, I think. But and then this was the main floor, which is even less visible, except for the shadow of me taking the picture. But this was really handy because there was a lot of people in black shirts, but some of us were part of the security system, and we were event security, not venue security. So we didn't sit there and lock and unlock doors for people and whatever. We just wandered around and made sure that everybody had directions to get to where they were going. Nobody was left unattended, wandering off to various areas, and just kind of being general all-purpose problem solvers. So you wander by the check-in area and they go, "Hey, we don't have any pens this morning." "Oh no, well, let me go get you some pens." So you run down to what's called Central Supply, which is where they unpacked all the boxes, and I'll show you those here in a second. Actually here. So in the background behind us, you could see some little wooden crates. There were, I don't know how many semi-trailers full of these that were unloaded on, I think they were unloaded on Wednesday, and we got there like Thursday evening. So by the time we got there, there was some curtains in the background, and we're standing on that static electricity tile, and they'd already gotten that much set up, but there was a lot more that went up, curtains that went up in this space, and so in the side rooms on the home teams, you guys were on the home team side, Greg, Nancy, and Brandon went over to help them, and they were putting up this. So there's plastic down on the carpet, just so we don't have to worry about that. And then they have like aluminum poles that go into base plates and hook in and that, and you slide the curtains on, and it gives you these nice little observation rooms, a little bit of privacy, so they can see a bunch of patients in there. So that's what they were helping set up on Friday. And I went over to the other side in this was in the visiting team locker rooms and the female spirit squads. We were in the cheerleaders locker rooms setting up. And so all this stuff that you see in those cubby holes, the shelving was already there. We didn't have to unpack that out of like IKEA boxes or something. That was there. But everything on that shelf, we had to pull out of those crates, like the ones that you saw behind us in the other picture. So this is one of the OR rooms, and then this is the table. Everything in there. The tables were in the locker rooms already because they kind of had some stuff for like doing physical therapy for the players and such. So we were able to use some of those existing tables. So that and the chairs, but the carts, everything else came on a pallet or in a crate, and we had to unbox it. And so we had to set up on our own side. There was 2 sections that were separated. So there was 10 rooms on each, plus there was the big open shower rooms, and they used that for some flush, I don't know, whatever. I'm not a medical person. I just do the manual labor. Like this. So this is one of these observation tables that you would like see in a doctor's office, but the doctor's office you go to probably never moved it because they're really heavy and really awkward to move. And as you can kind of see in the picture there, it angles. So you can lean up the back or lean down the bottom. So it kind of adjusts a little bit, which means there's nothing stable to hold on to. So you pick it up, and then the top of the table comes with you, and the rest of the table is still sitting there. So this is like a 3, maybe 4-person job, and then all those sliding drawers come out, and they got the footrest and whatever. So if you lean it too far one way, somebody gets whacked in the shins, and then they decided the best way to transport these in the truck was to set one on a pallet, and then take another one, flip it over, and set it on top of it. Which makes sense. It takes up less space. It's just really hard when you're in this tight little spot. So we would wheel the pallet in there, get 4 guys, flip it over, and go, yep, okay, that's where it's staying. We're done. Go to the next one. So each of the 10 rooms in the OR, plus all the rooms that Women's Health had, all had the same table. Everybody had to set up. So this is a common pain that everyone had to experience. And then this is the dentistry area. They had a big open, just rows and rows and rows. So they had, they color coded with the tablecloths. So some of them, they did like extractions on one side and like cleanings on the other. This is a close-up. So they had their own chairs that were designed to be moved instead of trying to bring heavy dentist chairs in. But a lot of the stuff here is stuff that was donated by people, either phased out of hospitals when they went to update, but it's still perfectly serviceable equipment. So they would move it, they would donate it to a nonprofit organization like this for use. There was even some new medical stuff that had been donated, some electrical, whatever, sterilization equipment, whatever. Medications, you can't, those need to be up to date. All of that is either funded through monetary donations to the organization so that they can go out and do this kind of stuff, or donated directly from hospitals or medical centers, donating their used but still useful equipment to the group. And the stadium itself was actually donated or greatly reduced in cost. They were definitely interested in making this happen in their city, and it was postponed by a little bit because of COVID, but the mayor was there, spoke at one of the evening things, welcoming all the volunteers, saying, "Thank you for coming to our city. Thank you for doing this. There's a huge need for it." And over the 4 days that we were there, they saw over 1,000 people each day, and that's across the 3 different departments. So medical, dentistry, and vision being the 3 primary ones that people would come in for. And then after this, they were able to go get a haircut, or there was a clothing center donating free clothing. There was legal counseling, mental health counseling. There was a lifestyle center where a lot of like pastors and stuff from the area were involved. There was a spiritual ministries team that we'll talk about here in a second. So this kind of gives you a sense of scale. We filled that football field, and then back underneath on the side where Nancy was standing when she took the picture, down underneath there was a lot more stuff. There was a radiology department, there was a cardiology department, there was children's daycare basically provided while the parents were going through. IT was back down underneath there. Skincare, there was a skincare department. Podiatry, that's the other one. Mental health was out on the floor. But yeah, there was a lot of different services provided. A lot of the medical stuff was down underneath. So this was, it was very cold the first couple of days. In fact, it snowed. So we got in late Thursday night and got checked into our hotel. Friday morning, we went over, got registered, got our shirts, and were just let loose to make ourselves useful. And so that's when LaRoche went over to Women's Health. I went over to OR. We worked, right up until sundown pretty much, as close as we could. And then Saturday night, as soon as the sun went down, we were back in there, finishing touches, unboxing the last little stuff, making sure, like OR had to make sure that each visitation room had, sterilization wipes and lung depressors and I don't know what else they did, but just making sure that everything was set up because first thing Sunday morning, Easter Sunday, we're letting people in. And so I was outside directing foot traffic around the building. We had a lot of people coming in that south side into the dentistry section that had purple wristbands and needed to go further around the corner to the vision department. So eventually it was like, well, okay, I'm going to have to bundle up, got my hat on, got my coat on, went outside there, and I stood at the long end of the railing, and I'm telling people, okay, purple wristbands this way, yellow wristbands this way, medical, you guys got to go back around the corner. Until I realized that I could replace myself with a sign and not freeze, so I did. And then it rained that night, and so the next day when I remembered, oh yeah, we got to get a picture of that. My sign had gotten a little wet, but it worked. Got some wristbands, drew some arrows on there that you can't really see anymore, taped it to a chair, and went inside to warm up. But while I was outside freezing on Sunday morning, and it actually snowed a little bit, didn't accumulate or anything, but it was cold enough that it was coming down and frozen water falling out of the sky. That's got to be pretty cold, right? Some people, and some of you may recognize Sarah, working hard. She was over in Women's Health. Nancy went in and got some pictures for me just so we could share this with you. She came down Saturday afternoon. She drove over from Ohio and worked in Women's Health, but then they had to go back Monday morning. They drove back, I think, or Sunday night, yeah. They were only there for just the one day. Her and a couple friends she brought along, also helping out. So that was, some people were lucky enough to stay nice and warm. And so now if Nancy wants to come up, not wants to, I know she doesn't want to come up here. Nancy, would you please come up and tell us a little bit about what it was like over in the pharmacy? So I guess the first question is, when did you hear about Pathway to Health?
Well, we had an ASI meeting at Lee Summit Church, and I had originally heard about it after one of the first ones, probably 6 years ago, and I thought, oh, that sounds really interesting. and they were getting ready to go to Phoenix. And I thought, oh, that sounds like fun to go to Phoenix in the spring, but we didn't go. So this time when I heard that it was in Indianapolis, I said, we definitely need to go. And so I kind of promoted it here, and we got a few takers, Ian, and it was just a really fulfilling experience. And I'm so glad that we went. We had the pharmacy was kind of, there was only like 4 volunteers for the pharmacy. And so when people go to the different departments, they all come to pharmacy afterwards to get their meds because they're on pain medicine. They've had a tooth extraction or something removed or whatever. So they all come. We provided lots of medications. Anyway, so when we first got there, it was not set up. It was just some boxes like Ian showed. And so I didn't know that my limited pharmacy experience over 30 years ago would come into play. It was like a third world country, just it was just pretty overwhelming. It was exciting, interesting, and I was like so thankful that I had that experience 30 years ago, and it kind of all came back to me, but it was a good experience. But we had volunteers from Purdue University, pharmacy students came, and they were valuable volunteers that we couldn't have done it without them. And so God just provides the perfect opportunity for us to work to serve him, because all those pharmacy students had never heard of Adventists. And they were able to come and help us and save us. And this really isn't an answer to Ian's question, but pharmacy is also a department that everybody else closes at 5 o'clock. It's kind of an 8 to 5 thing, but pharmacy, you're there till late in the night. So our first day was Sunday. Greg and I didn't get out of there till like 10 o'clock. We were the last 2 in Lucas Oil Stadium. They had kind of turned the lights down low, and it's like there's nobody left. We're in this great big huge stadium, and it's just Greg and I from Kingsville, Missouri, in Lucas Oil Stadium. It was kind of awesome in a weird sort of way, but very fulfilling. And so you'd have people come up and get their prescriptions. And Ian may touch on this, but they spoke in so many different languages, and you try to explain, do you have any questions about your prescription? And they're like, no habla English. Or there was so many different languages that I had never even heard of before. I'm just like, so they had French interpreters, but luckily
Creole.
these pharmacy students, there were some that were bilingual, and I was like, thank you. And so they would help explain the prescriptions to the people. But anyway, it was just a great experience. What's your next question? I'm sorry, Ramble.
You answered my other question.
Okay.
So there's Nancy behind the computer. There was a lot of data entry, wasn't there? Because every customer or every patient that came through, you had to enter their information into the computer for record tracking and that kind of stuff. You guys were printing out prescriptions to put on the bottles. And so that's what a lot of the students, I think, I saw Purdue University pharmacy jackets sitting at the computers, just typing away, putting stuff in. And then I got a picture here. Before all that started, Greg was helping out. Greg was with the IT department. He was helping set up for that kind of stuff, getting computers plugged in, networked, hooked into printers, and that kind of thing. Did you have something you wanted to share about that?
I noticed good thing they turned that off, because I see you photoshopped that picture and put some gray hair on me. But I'm going to step back a second to when Nancy and I first heard about the opportunity when we went to Lee Summit Church. I don't even know, Nan, if I've told you, but when we were sitting in that presentation, they were telling about this upcoming event. It was going to be like, 3 weeks before it actually occurred. And I was sitting there in the meeting. I said, boy, that would be nice to do. I said, Lord, if that's something we need to do, have Nancy have some interest. And it wasn't even the program, he wasn't even over. And she reached over and says, "Hey, would you like to go?" So the Lord speaks to us, but we have to act. And I thank him that he encouraged me to do so, because it was a wonderful time that we had. As Ian mentioned, we got there late Thursday night. Friday morning, for whatever reason, these morning people wanted to get up, and we were over there at 6:30 in the morning. Yeah. Did you? Well, Brandon and Nancy and I, we went over around 6:30 in the morning roughly to begin. And I normally walk about 2,500 steps to 3,000 steps a day. Friday, I ended up, when we went back to the room after the end, I had 22,000 steps. I really didn't feel exhausted, so to speak. We kept going. We did the build out, as Ian touched on, in the various areas. When Sunday morning came, we had worked all day Thursday in setting up the IT. They had assigned me, for whatever reason, to the IT section, which after Sunday morning about noon, the activities that I was working with in the various stations was pretty much settled down. We worked out all the issues. So I ended up going around and seeing, what areas I might be able to help in. And I found this beautiful woman in the pharmacy area. So I went over, and the rest 2 or 3 days, I pretty much hung out in the pharmacy area and kind of helped in that area. But it was a good experience. We actually had the opportunity to come in contact with some people that perhaps you wouldn't normally do on a day-to-day basis. And on the other hand, there were people just like you and I that needed help, that wouldn't necessarily have stepped up. They didn't have insurance. They were accepting people. You didn't have to need insurance. Just show up. There was the opportunity. They would feed the people as well. They had brought box lunch. And if I'm stealing your thunder, let me know. Ian came over last night to kind of coordinate this with us, and they come out and picked me up about a half hour before sundown. I was in the field, and I'd been out there probably, about 12 plus hours, 14, okay, yeah, whatever. So I ate a little bit when I came in, and I said, I'm going to sit down in the chair a minute. Next thing I knew, I woke myself up snoring. So if I'm stealing some of your thunder, you can just tap me on the shoulder. But the opportunity was not only to have box lunches they were giving out to the people and to also the volunteers. They were giving out bottled water. We were meeting their needs from a physical standpoint, and also, as I think he's going to touch on, from a spiritual standpoint.
I will add, there was a spiritual ministries team made up of a lot of the pastors and stuff, and I'll touch on that more here in a second. But they were handing out bottled water, and these were the guys going around praying with people. When I was outside freezing, they were coming around handing out hand warmers to people, because a lot of them had to walk to the stadium to get there. They didn't have a transportation vehicle. So they walked through the cold, snowy Easter morning, freezing fingers, and they're going around giving out hand warmers to a lot of people. So there was a lot of that.
I'll, if you don't mind, read a text, and then I'll leave it to you to finish. But as I was thinking here, Matthew chapter 25, and I'm going to start with verse 31. This is going to be very familiar to many of you. And it begins, when the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, and then he will set them and they will set him upon his throne. My eyes here, I didn't bring my glasses, that's why I'm not reading on my Bible. Verse 32. And then before him shall be gathered all the nations, and shall be separated on one hand and one on the other, and they divide him, the sheep from the goats, and he shall set the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. And then the king shall say to them on his right hand, Come ye, blessed, my Father, inherit the kingdom that is prepared for you for the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. Sick, and you visited me. In prison, and you came to see me. And then the righteous answered him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry, and we fed you, or thirsty, and we gave you drink? When we saw you as a stranger, and we took you in, or naked, and clothed thee? Or when we saw thee sick, or in prison, and we came unto you? And the king shall say, and answer them, and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, as much as you have done it unto one of these, of the least my brethren, you have done it to me. And as you remember, the second part, he says the very similar, but yet the opposite to those that were on his left hand. I'm not up here saying that we did anything special, but it was special to be part of a group that did it. And it's going to come up again next year, and Ian's probably going to some of that. I'd encourage you, if you get the opportunity, take part. It was a blessing just to be there and be part of a much larger cause to help others that were in need. Thanks, Ian, for the opportunity.
Well, and I was going to not be maybe that specific about it, but I do encourage all of you, and hopefully by the end of this, you'll have that desire too, because really that's my goal in sharing about this, is that you guys see what it's like to receive that blessing, to be a blessing to others, and maybe something inside you says, that's something I should do too. And I know the biggest question is probably, what am I going to do? What can I do? I'm not necessarily qualified to be a nurse. This is Brandon. He was part of the rapid response team because they figured trauma nurse, he can do whatever, right? So I'm not going to say a lot of what he did was sitting around, but if you don't need the rapid response trauma team, that's probably a good thing. So I snuck in, got a picture of him when he wasn't looking. But again, I did a lot of wandering around too. Just, if you don't need the security guys, then everything's going good, right? The less Brandon and I had to do, the better it was going for everybody else. So he did get his moment to shine. We had one individual came in, went through some of the departments, got over to the lifestyle center, which was almost to the exit of the, basically your last stop on your way out, and collapsed on the floor. So there's Brandon. You can kind of tell what he's doing. I was a little ways off. I didn't want to crowd everybody, but he was over there holding an IV bag, getting him some fluids. And that was his big moment for the day. He had some other stuff later. There was someone else, and I was going to get the story from him and write it down, so I don't remember all the details. But there was another lady who came in, couldn't be helped with, she needed help that was beyond the level that even the OR here was able to provide. They only did stuff under local anesthesia. They didn't knock anybody out. They didn't have the equipment or the personnel to handle something like that. And she needed something, anyway, whatever it was beyond the scope of what we were able to provide. So Brandon walked with her blocks and blocks and blocks and blocks, and he didn't know he was going outside. And if you remember the picture of me earlier, hat, coat, freezing, red nose, looking like Rudolph, yeah. Brandon walked out there like that. So you can see t-shirt, he had a white shirt on and his pants, and he pretty much went outside dressed like this. Now I knew I was going to be outside, so the khaki pants that I wore there were fleece lined. His weren't. So he shivered his way for a good mile or more, and then called his folks. It was like, Dad, can you come get me? I'm freezing out here. So he got picked up, but he showed me on a map later. He's like, yes, we walked down here, and then we turned, and we went over these blocks, and then we went up here, and ended over somewhere near downtown almost. Finally talked her into staying at a bus stop or something. So he has some good stuff, and if this had been last week, I would have made him come up here and tell his part of the story too, but timing just didn't work out on it. But he was able to Thankfully, not very often, but his expertise also came into play, and he was able to help out and do some, hold an IV bag for somebody. So we did meet some people, saw some familiar faces. So Brandon and I found Pastor Rob and his wife Chris Long, who I think most of you remember, used to be our pastor over at the old location. And then the girls, and he's actually pastoring there in Indiana, or in Indianapolis actually. So they were around for a lot of it. And then the girls, Abby and Sarah, they came up for the event and also to see their parents. They came in Sunday night, I think. And so Abby was a nurse with cardiology department, because that's what she does as her day job. And Sarah was assigned to the PT department to do physical therapy, assist with that. But she ended up, that blue lei around her neck, she ended up moving over to patient assistance and transport. So they were the ones who would escort people around, because you guys saw that map. It's not the most logical layout. There's kind of, you got to go over here and turn around that. And we don't really have good signage. There's signs on the curtains, but you didn't really know from the other end of the field, yeah, it's that way. Getting people to and from stuff without them getting lost was definitely an issue. And so there was a whole group of people with that, just for providing wheelchairs if necessary, or providing an escort, that kind of thing. Also, part of that group, but kind of separate, but on the same channel on the radio, I guess, was the translation services. So we could jump over to channel 3 or whatever it was. And so that was another one of the benefits of the security people, is each security personnel in a black shirt had their own radio. So we walk into a situation and they say, oh, hey, we can't talk to this person. We don't know what's wrong. So they flag us down. We get over on channel 3, say, hey, we need somebody that speaks Creole. I want to say Hindi. We had an Indian translator. There was somebody who did Chinese. There was a few different ones that, kind of outside that normal scope. And the amazing thing is, each one of them was needed at some point. So you think, you're not going to need somebody who speaks, whatever, some obscure thing, or, stuff that isn't necessarily common around here, but you're surprised. But I don't want to pick on anybody. But each person that was there that was translating, every language that they were able to translate for was valuable at some point. Everybody was needed. Everybody was pitching in to do their part. And then also, Nancy found Marilyn Dennison, who, if any of you have used the bathrooms today here, or the drinking fountains or anything like that, you can thank her, because she is the plumber that came with Maranatha and helped put this church together. And so she also was at this event, but instead of hooking up toilets or whatever, she was doing the admissions table for the medical side. So I didn't see her, but Nancy did, and got a picture with her. And so, you never know who else you're going to see at these events. Familiar faces, catch up with people that you haven't seen for a while, or you're going to make new friends. So this is a group. This is 4 sisters, and I met them when I was helping to set up the OR. So the lady behind me, I'm going to go to this side. So the lady in the white mask behind me, her name is Dr. Rona Chen. She was the only surgeon that was there on Friday when we were setting up. The head surgeon for the department wasn't there yet, so she got to call all the shots. She said, I want this, this needs to go over there. We go, okay, we don't know any better. Yes, ma'am, and take it over there. So then across from me, the lady in the purple jacket and her husband in blue next to her, that's Becky, and I don't remember her husband's name. But he's an orthopedic doctor, surgeon, I think. And so they came and ran the orthopedics department. And Becky was helping with the check-in, so people would come in, and she kind of, was able to assist him with that. And then behind them is Linda and her husband Jonathan in the red, and Jonathan assisted with the orthopedics department. Linda has a degree, or has her background at least, in IT. So she was part of that same group that Greg was talking about. But she worked as like the data entry person. So when you would go into a department, there was a person there who would scan your patient records that you were given at the admissions section, or actually, they scanned it there. At the end of your visitation, after they'd updated your records, they scanned it back into the system with the updated information and stamped it, and that's what she was doing. And then the lady smiling behind me, just over my shoulder, is Lee, and she was with the dental check-in, which is where I was first stationed. The first day of security, they had me up there kind of just behind the tables, making sure everything was flowing nicely. So I got to know her a little bit, and through her other three sisters. And she has her degree in accounting or something like that, I think she does. And again, even if you have a degree or don't have a degree, there's a place for everybody. And it might be something as simple as put document in scanner, wait for it to come out, stamp it, done. It might be that. Or it could be, working with people. If you like talking to people, if you can be friendly and smile that much, even though you have to sit next to me. I think she's smiling because she knows that as soon as I take this picture, I'm moving back to the middle and she doesn't have to. Anyways. And all four of these sisters, now that they're grown and married and live across the country, they all came to Indiana for this event to help out, mainly because in support of their sister Rona, but they were all able to pitch in their own departments in their own ways, even though they're from vastly different technical experiences and different skill sets. Each one of them was applicable and was useful, and they all stayed plenty busy. Everyone there did. So this is the group that was the OR. This is everybody across 4 different operating rooms. This is the group that handled all of that throughout the day. And Dr. Rona's there in the white lab coat in front. And some of you, you can't really tell from here, but some of you could see where my blazer is. In the back there, tall guy in the black hat, might look familiar to some of you. They asked me to be in the picture. I don't know why. I didn't do any of the operations. I had my knife with me and I offered a few times, but it's fine. That's unnecessary, but thank you for offering. They roped me into that picture because those tables were really, really heavy. And there wasn't enough of them there on Friday to get them in place. So, you know what? You help these two, you can be in the picture. And then another similar group photo, this one of pharmacy that Nancy's missing from. Yeah, exactly. So you're not in the picture. So this is the group, at least on the final day, the group that was there. I know they had a little bit of a revolving door for the students that were there. Each day they had kind of some new people coming in, just there for the day to help run the computers and stuff. Let's see. Okay, one more. So this is the last picture. So I had one last picture I was going to show you guys. Didn't get it added in time, which is fine because it's just a picture of us in the car on the way home. But we're all smiling, very excited, not to be leaving, but just energized from the past 3 days of, being able to help, being able to outreach. And it's true, we don't live by bread alone, but by the words of God, and sharing those words with other people also helps. So even though we were getting up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, or 7 o'clock for some of us, and staying up till at least 10 o'clock the one night. Busy all day, walking 20,000 plus steps. That's over 10 miles each day. Getting all this exercise that we don't necessarily normally get. Working harder, more physically demanding than what we normally do. It was such a blessing, so energizing to be helping people and to be ministering to people, that even after 3 days of this, very little sleep and very full days, we're all still all smiles for the picture. And just after, Nancy says, "So, how was it? You guys want to go again?" And everybody agreed yes. And that was probably the most popular topic between volunteers. Just sitting with people for lunch or whatever. Hey, so where are you from? Okay. Well, what department are you with? Oh, cool. Okay. So where do you think the next one's going to be? When do you think the next one's going to be? Because they haven't announced it yet. But rest assured, once they do, well, probably Nancy will beat me to it. We'll be up here telling you all about it. And I strongly encourage you all to consider participation if you can. Even, some of these connections you make aren't necessarily just friends for the thing, whatever, but these are like Marilyn came here and helped us build our church, and then we ran into her again at another event. We've seen people on other mission trips. There was a guy from Kansas we saw. They went to Honduras the year my dad and I went, and then we saw him again at the sunrise thing that Southern does for Easter. He was there all dressed up like a Bible character, sitting in a booth giving out bread, unleavened bread to kids or something. So you run into these people again and again and again, and that also helps, because now if we want to have another health expo, if we want to bring people into Kansas City and have a similar event, like St. Louis, there's a group in St. Louis that does a similar type expo, but on a much smaller scale, and I do not remember the name of the group, unfortunately. But that's just on the other side of the state. That's something a lot, perhaps, depending on where this one moves around the country. They were in Texas, Fort Worth, Texas, last time, and now they were in Indiana, which was closer for some of us, further for others, but yet everyone's still taking the time to go there, either fly, drive, something, and stay. So I strongly encourage all of you to consider some form of outreach, some form of helping out in your community or a neighboring community, just being involved, because the only thing that would have made this event even better is if we had more people there to help out, because then we wouldn't have only been able to see 1,000 people a day. We could have seen 1,500 people a day, maybe 2,000 people a day. So the more people we have helping out, the more of an impact we can have. And so we'll close with our song now.
Thank you, Ian and Nancy and Greg. That was inspiring. Appreciate it. Let's all stand.